What's going on, besties? Today we're going to be talking about knowledge and ideas when it comes to the ATI TEAS version 7 reading. Let's get started. There are 3 concepts that you're going to need to know when it comes to citing evidence from a text, including predictions, interpretations, and conclusions. And I'll give you a simple way to remember each one. As always, the number one thing you are going to want to do every single time when it comes to answering questions about citing evidence is to read the question first. It's important to know what the question is specifically asking before you read the passage. So starting first with predictions. This is like being a little detective and guessing what might actually happen next. So for example, if a story mentions dark clouds gathering, you can predict that there might be some kind of rain or storm that's coming. It's like actually looking up at the clouds in real life and guessing what is actually going on. Is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? It's the same thing. Next up, we have interpretations. So think of this as like being a psychologist and understanding the deeper meaning that the author is trying to imply. So say a character in the text keeps fidgeting and avoiding eye contact. You might interpret that as they're being nervous, or they could potentially be hiding something. It's like noticing a friend's body language in real life and understanding that they're most likely anxious. And lastly, we have conclusions. So this is where you become a judge and you're going to ultimately decide what the text is really saying at the end. So if a story ends with the character smiling and celebrating, you can conclude that it's a happy ending. It's like watching the end of a movie and understanding the story's overall message. Let's take a look at some practice questions. Starting with our first practice question. Based on the passage, what prediction can be made about the upcoming events in the story? The passage reads, "The sky was overcast, a blanket of gray extending as far as the eye could see. Natalie noted the heavy, oppressive air and the way the leaves on the trees suddenly stilled as if in anticipation. She remembered the last time the sky looked like this, barely a month ago when the town was hit by a storm that left them without power for days." So our potential answers are: Natalie prepare for an outdoor adventure. Well, that's probably not going to happen if it's looking very ominous outside, right? The town will experience calm and pleasant weather. Well, based on the way that she describes what's happening, that's probably not going to be the correct answer. C, there will be a significant storm that may impact the town. Well, based on what she said, based on past experience, it sounds like that could potentially be the answer, but let's move on. Natalie will leave town to escape the bad weather. Well, it doesn't really mention anything about her leaving town to escape this weather, so out of all of the options that we have available to us, C is going to be the most correct answer. The next question is, based on the passage, how can Mr. Dalton's feelings towards the ancient text be interpreted? In the quiet library, Mr. Dalton's gaze lingered over the ancient text, his expression a mixture of awe and curiosity. "These books," he whispered, "hold secrets of a lost civilization waiting to be rediscovered. Their knowledge is like a buried treasure, priceless and rare." So our options are: A, he is indifferent and uninterested in the books. Well, based on what he's saying about the books, that doesn't seem like that's the correct answer. B, he finds the books outdated and useless. Well, again, he uses things like, "These books hold secrets of lost civilizations." While they might be outdated based on when they actually took place, they're definitely not useless in his eyes. C, he is deeply fascinated and values the knowledge in books. Yes, absolutely, that could be our correct answer. But lastly, D, he is confused and overwhelmed by the contents of these books. Well, he's definitely not confused by them. So based out of all of the options that we have available to us, again, C is going to be the correct answer. So let's talk about identifying theme in a story. So a theme is a significant concept interwoven through a narrative. It's really going to transcend that plot and that synopsis, delving much more deeper into the overall meaning of the story. So that theme is going to bridge a broad concept about life or society with the narrative's events. So often a theme addresses fundamental questions that are going to be posed by the story, such as, really, what defines a family? What are our deepest fears? And it's going to answer these questions through the form of the story's theme, like family goes beyond blood relations, or our greatest fear can be the loss of our unique identity, right? So theme differs from the main idea, which is the central topic of the story, and from the summary, which recounts the story's events. While the main idea and summary deal with what the story is about and what is happening in it, theme is really going to offer that insightful or that moral compass for the reader as it's applying it to their own life. So what's great about themes is themes are universally relatable concepts. So for instance, if I share an experience about getting a questionable funnel cake at a carnival and ultimately ending up with food poisoning, the theme isn't specifically about packing my own food or about avoiding that particular food stand, because not everybody has carnivals. Instead, it's really a broader message, like the importance of being prepared in case something like this happens. The theme resonates more widely because while not everyone may encounter a specific hot dog stand or specific funnel cake stand, everyone can understand the value of preparation. So think of a theme as being similar to finding the moral of a story, but it's really going to have a little bit of a slight difference. So a moral directly imparts a specific lesson, whereas a theme might encompass a lesson, but it isn't limited to just that. It can be more abstract. To unearth that story's theme, you have to consider asking yourself some of these overarching questions. What did the character learn? In what way did they grow or transform? What motivated their actions? What has changed in the story's end? And what lingers in your mind long after the story is over? Let's take a look at an example of what this might actually look like when you're taking the TEAS. So let's take a look at these questions with this folklore called The Caterpillar's Wisdom. In a lush, vibrant forest where the trees danced with the breeze and the flowers whispered secrets, there lived a young caterpillar named Cora. Cora was unlike other caterpillars. She was born with vibrant, multicolored patches all over her body, making her stand out amongst the green foliage. Cora loved exploring, but her unique appearance often attracted attention, making her an easy target for birds and other predators. Her friends, more camouflaged and less noticeable, warned her about the dangers of being conspicuous. One day, while venturing out, Cora met an old, wise butterfly named Alara. Alara listened to Cora's worries about her bright colors and smiled gently. "Your uniqueness is your strength," she said. "In time, you will see." Not long after, a group of birds spotted Cora. She remembered Alara's words and instead of hiding, displayed her colors more boldly. These birds, dazzled by her beauty, decided not to harm her, remarking that something so beautiful must be cherished. Emboldened by the experience, Cora started to view her colors as a gift rather than a curse. She began to embrace her uniqueness, no longer trying to blend in, but rather to stand out. As autumn came, Cora prepared to cocoon. She wrapped herself in a silk chrysalis, pondering over her life and her transformation. When she finally emerged, she became a breathtaking butterfly, her wings a mosaic of the colors she had once feared. Cora fluttered back to her friends, who were amazed by her transformation. She shared her story, teaching them the value of embracing her uniqueness and seeing strengths in what makes them different. Cora became known throughout the forest not only for her beauty, but for her wisdom. She reminded everyone that what makes you different makes you special. So looking back at our questions, what did the characters learn? Well, Cora learned that her uniqueness was her strength and not a weakness to be hidden. In what way did they grow or transform? Cora grew from a self-conscious caterpillar into a confident, wise butterfly who embraced her unique qualities. What motivated their actions? Well, initially, fear and the desire to fit in motivated Cora, but later that wisdom that she got from Alara and her own experiences taught her the value of showcasing her uniqueness. What has changed by the story's end? Well, by the end, Cora transformed not only physically into a butterfly, but also in her perspective, seeing her distinct colors as a gift. And then lastly, what stays with you after the story is over? So that enduring message is about embracing and celebrating our unique traits that can ultimately transform our vulnerabilities into strengths. Let's take a look at a quick practice question of how this will be applied on the TEAS. So here's our practice question. What way did Taro grow and transform in the story? So the story states, in a small coastal village, there lived a humble fisherman named Taro. Known for his exceptional skills, Taro was most admired for his humility and kindness. During a fierce storm, he bravely saved a drowning traveler not for fame or reward, but out of sheer compassion. Taro became a hero in his village, yet he always credited his success to the unity and support of his fellow villagers. He often said, "Alone we are drops, but together we are an ocean." Let's take a look at our potential answers. So A, he became the most skilled fisherman in the village. Well, it doesn't really talk about that. While he may be exceptionally skilled in his fishermen, we don't know about the other villagers. B, he learned the importance of fishing for survival. Well, that's not really something that was discussed in this particular passage, so we can automatically eliminate B. C, he transformed from a lone fisherman to a community hero. Well, absolutely. That is something that they talked about. He lived as a humble fisherman. He ultimately saved someone's life that was drowning, so he did become a community hero. So that could be the potential correct answer. But lastly, we have D, he realized the dangers of fishing during the storms. Well, really the end of it was more about community, more about him becoming a hero and him saying that I'm only as good as my community. So we can automatically eliminate that. So out of all the answers that we have available to us, C is the correct answer. Our next question states, what stays with you after the story about Sarah is over? So Sarah is a high school student, was facing immense pressure while preparing for an important exam, just like you all are. Observing her stress, her mother shared her own past experiences with exam anxiety and emphasizing the need for balance. She advised Sarah to dedicate time to study, to relax, and to pursue hobbies. Inspired, Sarah modified her routine, balancing her study time with leisure activities. She not only performed well on her exam, but she also learned the crucial life lesson of maintaining balance. So out of our potential answers, we have A, the lessons of balancing work and relaxation in life. Yes, that is absolutely something that was discussed during this passage. Let's look at our other answers. B, the role of parental advice in academic success. Well, that wasn't the overall theme of the story, but that was something that they did talk about. C, the pressure of high school exams. Well, while high school exams have a lot of pressure associated with them, that is not the overall theme of this passage. And then lastly, D, the techniques of effective exam preparation. Well, again, they didn't really talk about exam preparation. They really talked about that balance. So out of each of the potential options we have available to us, A is the most correct answer. Next, we're going to discuss claims and counterclaims. So many of you have social media accounts, and you've probably noticed that disagreements are common. Why? Because each of us holds a different opinion. In discussions or meetings, we often prefer harmony, wishing nobody would disagree. However, disagreements are going to be inevitable due to the diverse viewpoints of each individual person. This leads us to the concepts of claims and counterclaims. So a claim is your main argument. It's the stance, your opinion, or conclusion on a particular issue or topic essential to the thesis statement of your viewpoint. Remember, a well-constructed claim doesn't just present your argument, but it also situates within a broader context, which often includes acknowledging and addressing any potential counter-arguments that may take place. Conversely, the counterclaim is essentially the opposite in that it is a statement that is going to challenge, refute, and oppose that initial claim. In debates, this opposition is typical as teams often split into affirmative and negative sides. For instance, let's consider a topic like mandatory overtime for nurses should be implemented to ensure adequate staffing. If that's the main argument or claim, a counterclaim could be mandatory overtime for nurses should not be implemented as it leads to nurse burnout. And that's going to have to be backed up by specific reasons and evidence. And as we know in today's nursing field, I'm sure that you're not going to have a difficult time finding that evidence. So a counterclaim is going to challenge that initial claim, presenting an alternative viewpoint. So starting with our question, what is the main claim made by Sarah in the story? So the story states, in a quaint town of Greenville, a debate was brewing among the residents about the operating hours of their cherished public public library. The library, a cornerstone of the community, had always closed at 6 p.m. However, a recent proposal to extend the hours until 9 p.m. sparked conversations across the town. During a community meeting, Sarah, the head librarian, took to the floor. She passionately argued, "The extension of the library's operating hours until 9 p.m. is essential for the enrichment of our community. By staying open later, we can provide invaluable access to resources for working adults and students. These groups often struggle to utilize the library due to their daytime commitments. Furthermore, extended hours would allow for more community programs and workshops in the evenings, benefiting everyone." So, what is the main claim? Our options are A, the library needs to update its collection of books. Well, it's not really something that we discuss, so we can eliminate that. B, extending the library's hours will significantly benefit the community. Absolutely, that's explicit evidence. It's specifically stated within the text. C, the library should hire more staff. That wasn't something that was argued at all. They were only discussing particularly the hours. And then D, the community does not use the library enough. Well, again, that is something that is not what was stated. It was stated that they're using the library constantly and they want more people to use the library. So out of all of the options we have available to us, B is going to be the most correct answer. Now let's talk about evaluating resources. So when we're evaluating sources, we're going to need to identify where that source is coming from. Is it a primary source, secondary, or tertiary source? So each source is going to serve a unique purpose in building a robust argument. So primary sources are often going to be direct evidence about a person, an event, or a phenomena. So for instance, Marie Curie's lab notebook is a quintessential primary source. Although its radioactive nature makes it a little bit difficult to handle, these sources can be anything from the time period or period that's being studied. So say we have a World War I soldier's journal. That's considered authoritative. It's directly from the person that experienced the events. So secondary sources, on the other hand, are created using primary sources. So they're going to analyze, interpret, and restate primary source information. So examples of this could be newspaper articles or even some textbooks. While primary sources are authoritative, secondary sources are going to be more persuasive. So it's important to note that what defines a primary or secondary source can vary based on the context and academic discipline. Just know that primary are going to be much more authoritative when it comes to the T's, and secondary sources are going to be more persuasive. And lastly, tertiary sources include information from both primary and secondary sources, but don't present new information or any kind of new analysis. So common examples can be textbooks, abstracts, and reference works such as dictionaries and encyclopedias. Wikipedia, for example, which many of us use, is a tertiary source. So let's take a look at an example of what this is going to look like when it comes to your T's. So let's explore the topic of the effects of social media on mental health. The primary source can be an original study or survey titled "The Impact of Social Media on Youth Mental Health," which was published in a psychology journal. This is a primary source as it presents original research data and findings directly from the researchers. A secondary source could be a documentary film analyzing various studies on social media's impact on mental health, including interviews with psychologists and summaries of several key studies like the one that we had mentioned before. This is a secondary source because it reviews and discusses findings from the primary research, providing a more complex concepts on the context as well as additional perspectives. And then lastly, we have tertiary sources. So this could be an entry in a textbook on digital media psychology that summarizes findings from various studies on social media as well as mental health, including the mentioned research study as well as the documentary film. So this is a tertiary source as it compiles information from multiple primary and secondary resources without actually providing any kind of new analysis of those two. So let's take a look at an example. Which of the following best describes the source used in a study mentioned in the passage? So the passage states, a recent experimental study published in the Journal of Environmental Science, explores the effect of urban green spaces on air quality. The research team collected air samples from various urban parks and analyzed them for pollutants like carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particulate matter. The study found a significant reduction in these pollutants within the green spaces compared to nearby urban areas without such spaces. So our potential answers are A, primary source, as it involves original research and data collection in urban green spaces. Yes, absolutely. This is all original data. B, a secondary source, as it summarizes findings from an environmental study. Well, again, it's not really coming from a secondary source. It's not providing new analysis based on an original source or primary source, so we can eliminate that. A tertiary source, as it provides an overview of urban environmental issues. Well, again, we're not taking our primary and our secondary sources and putting them together without new analysis, so we can automatically eliminate that. And then lastly, a review article critiquing existing environmental policies. We didn't discuss anything about environmental policies, so we can automatically eliminate that. The correct answer to this question is going to be A, as it is a primary source. So what are rhetorical devices? How can you effectively convince someone to understand and accept your perspective? Well, Aristotle, a renowned Greek philosopher, offered insightful strategies for persuasion. He identified 3 critical techniques known as the 3 appeals, which are fundamental in persuading an audience to support an argument. These appeals are named ethos, pathos, and logos. And each of them are going to target a different aspect of the audience response and reasoning. So starting with ethos, ethos seeks to earn the audience's trust in the speaker or writer, emphasizing credibility and reliability. So for example, gaining the trust of a doubtful audience hinges on the person that is presenting showing that the speaker is going to be credible, knowledgeable, and has good intentions. Ethos is established by citing relevant experiences, outlining qualifications, or utilizing reputable sources to demonstrate expertise in a subject matter. Now, when it comes to pathos, pathos really taps into the audience's emotions. It's encouraging a belief through emotional connection and empathy. This technique is widely used in various forms of popular media, including movies, books, as well as music. When it comes to academic writing, merely evoking emotions is not going to be enough. To effectively employ pathos in a scholarly context, authors are going to use vivid, descriptive language. This includes the strategic use of emotions, powerful adjectives, verbs that can paint a clear, emotional, resonant picture for the reader. And then lastly, we have logos. On the other hand, it's going to engage the audience's logic, right? Logos, logic. It's going to engage their logic and their reason, persuading them with well-reasoned arguments and logical consistencies. This is achieved by constructing a solid case of using facts, figures, well-reasoned evidence. By presenting arguments that are logically sound, the position of the conclusion as rational and well-founded makes counter-arguments seem less convincing or even irrational, depending on what they're talking about. Let's take a look at some practice questions of how they might ask this on the teas. The first question states, which statement in the passage reflects the use of ethos? Remember, we're looking for credibility and reliability. So in my 20 years as a heart surgeon, I have seen the direct impact of healthy eating on cardiovascular health. This experience, coupled with extensive research, has led me to advocate for a balanced diet as a cornerstone of heart health. I stand before you not just as a doctor, but as someone who has personally witnessed the transformative power of good nutrition. So our options are A, I have seen the direct impact of healthy eating or cardiovascular health. Again, we're not really gaining their trust. We're not showing our credibility and reliability here, so we can automatically eliminate that. B, this experience, coupled with extensive research, has led me to advocate for a balanced diet. Again, there's not really any credibility here. There's not any reliability. While he talks about his experience, we're not really seeing specifically how this is credible. C, I stand before you not as a doctor, but as someone who has personally witnessed. This is huge, right? This is credibility. I am a doctor. Reliability. I have witnessed. So yes, C would make the most sense in regards to a correct answer, but then we have D, the transformative power of good nutrition. Again, there's no credibility here. So out of all of the options that we have available to us, C is going to be the most correct answer. Our next question states, what part of the passage is an example of pathos? So remember, we're looking for those vivid imageries. We're looking for it to invoke some kind of emotion. That's what we're looking at in this particular passage. So as I walked through the remnants of a once thriving coral reef, I was struck by the devastating effects of ocean pollution. The vivid colors and bustling marine life I remembered from my childhood were replaced by a bleached coral and eerie silence. This heartbreaking scene is a grim reminder of what we stand to lose if we don't take action to protect our oceans. This sounds like a very persuasive writing, right? So let's take a look at our options. We have A, the devastating effects of ocean pollution. While we do invoke some kind of emotion when it comes to that particular statement, it isn't really painting a vivid imagery of what we're looking at, right? So we can automatically eliminate that. We have B, the vivid colors and bustling marine life I remembered from my childhood. While we are looking at more of an imagery thing here, we're looking at vivid colors, we're looking at bustling marine life. It's not really stating specifically what it is that we want or what it is that we're trying to convey. So keep that on the back burner for now, but I don't think that's our correct answer. C, this heartbreaking scene is a grim reminder of what we stand to lose. This is excellent, right? We have a heartbreaking scene. That is our imagery. We know that our oceans are becoming more polluted, and they also talk about what their position is, what we stand to lose, what it is that they're trying to persuade or convey to you. So C seems like it's going to be the most correct, but let's take a look at D. If we don't take action to protect our oceans, that's not really providing us with a lot more information that we need in order to make an informed decision. So out of all the options we have available to us, C is going to be the most correct answer. This particular sentence is effectively employing that pathos by evoking emotions of sadness as well as loss. It's that description of that heartbreaking scene, the reminder of what could be lost is appealing to that particular reader's emotions. So out of B and C, those two options, C is going to be the most correct answer. Lastly, let's take a look at qualitative and quantitative research. So quantitative research is designed to test hypotheses and typically involves data collection that's going to result in a numerical or graphical representation. This method generally necessitates a larger sample group, and the gathered numbers are analyzed using mathematics and statistical techniques, meaning that it's going to be able to be measurable. So that's our quantitative data. Think quantity, right? That's a number. Quantity, quantitative. Conversely, we have qualitative research, which is utilized primarily for formulating hypotheses. So unlike quantitative research, it produces data that is expressed in words rather than numbers. It often requires a smaller number of respondents, meaning that the data cannot be measured mathematically. The analysis for qualitative research involves summarizing, categorizing, and interpreting the collective verbal and textual data. So now that we understand the differences between the two, the next question is, what method should we use for each? Well, the decision really is going to be straightforward. If your objective is to confirm or test a specific theory or hypothesis, the quantitative approach is going to be the most suitable approach. However, if your aim is to gain a deeper understanding of or to explore a concept or idea in depth, then you're probably going to want to use a more qualitative approach in the way that you approach this particular study. So using the context of nursing, let's apply quantitative and qualitative approaches. So if I wanted to adopt a more quantitative approach, I might survey 300 nursing students at a university, asking them to rate questions like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the clinical training part of your course? Based on that collected data, I would perform statistical analysis and could conclude something like, on average, nursing students rate their clinical training experience 4.2 out of 5. That would be a more quantitative approach. Conversely, if I chose a more qualitative approach, I would conduct an in-depth interview with maybe 15 nursing students, asking open-ended questions like, how do you feel about your clinical training in the nursing program? Or what improvements would you suggest for the clinical training aspect of your course? After transcribing these interviews, I would analyze them to identify common patterns or themes across all of the interviews. So for instance, I might find a recurring sentiment like many students express a desire for more hands-on experience and direct mentorship during their clinical rotation. This would be a more qualitative approach. Let's take a look at some practice questions of what it will look like on the TEAS. Let's take a look at our question. Is the research method used in this study quantitative or qualitative? So the study states a group of researchers conducted an interview of 20 nurses working in emergency departments to explore their experiences and coping strategies during high-stress situations. The interview consisted of open-ended questions allowing nurses to share detailed personal experiences and insights. The researchers then analyzed the transcripts to identify common themes and insights about stress management and emergency nursing. So right off the bat, we have a qualitative study. We have a small group of nurses and they're looking at coping strategies and their experiences, and they're asking open-ended questions. So automatically we can eliminate anything about quantitative. So A, quantitative because it focuses on specific groups of professionals, we can eliminate that. And C, quantitative because it uses statistical methods to analyze data. Automatically can eliminate that. We're looking at a qualitative research study. So we have B and we have D. B, qualitative because it involves analyzing personal experiences shared in interviews. Yes, absolutely. They're analyzing everybody's personal experiences and looking for common themes. And then we have D because it employs a large sample size in interviews. Well, like we know, qualitative research is going to have smaller sample sizes. That's why we only have 20. So we can automatically eliminate D. Out of all the answers we have available to us, B is going to be the most correct answer. I hope that this video was helpful in understanding what you're going to need to know when it comes to knowledge and ideas on the ATI TEAS reading portion of the exam. As always, if you have any questions, make sure that you leave them down below. I love answering your questions. Head over to nursecheungstore.com where there's a ton of additional resources that are available to you to help you pass your exams. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. Bye!